friends, it's Sherry Ricard with the Real Girl Talk podcast. I'm an author, speaker, business leader, and adversity recovery expert. I'm bringing you fabulous guests, lifestyle tips, and a weekly dose of inspiration to help you create a beautiful life. So grateful that you're here. Now let's dive in.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on SherryRicard.com.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk. Do I have a message for you today? Wow. If you've ever felt a loved one that's passed away is sending you messages, or you have felt their spirit around you, get comfy because I have the guest for you. Listen up. My guest today is Danyelle Simone. She helps spiritual seekers understand their intuitive gifts. She is a psychic medium and intuitive coach with over a decade of professional experience. Her sessions provide clients with hope, healing, and life direction. She gives clients the ability to see their problems from a spiritual perspective and achieve their goals. Welcome to Real Girl Talk, Danyelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love what you say that your hobbies are. Artwork and looking at cute dogs on Instagram.
Yeah, it's kind of a guilty pleasure, just following a bunch of dogs.
That's awesome. And so this show is recorded, but we are recording on National Dog Day. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, today is National Dog Day. So there's probably cute dog pics all over Instagram today. And I'm going to tell you, my biggest challenge of the day so far has been trying to get my 65-pound American Bulldog to take a photo with me for Instagram. And that was
I love it.
No easy feat. I'm telling you, it wasn't easy at all. So I want to tell everybody that how I found you. So I found Danyelle online. And you guys know a lot about my story and my background and some of the things that I've suffered with the loss of my child. And I was talking to a friend of mine and it got brought up. We were talking about dream interpretation. And then that led into a conversation about signs and how to be able to recognize the signs from a loved one. So, of course, Google is our friend. And I started Googling and scrolling. And of course, there's a lot online about dream interpretation and about signs and mediums and psychics. But there was something about Danyelle that made me stop. I got on her website and I saw her picture. And it was an instant connection. And you guys know how I am about that kind of stuff. I was instantly connected to her. So I thought, you know what? This must be the right person to have on the show with all of the people out there that could talk about understanding the signs that we get from our loved ones. She's the perfect fit. And what a gift you have, Danyelle.
Thank you so much.
You really do. And I want you to talk a little bit about that because my mind is spinning. I have so many questions. And, you know, some of the first questions I have is like, what's Bryant doing? Or does Bryant have any messages for me? Or what do you know about my son? But I want this to be about the listeners. And I want you to tell us a little bit about your background so we understand. Where did you first, or when did you first recognize this gift that you have?
I first recognized it when I was 16 years old. I would have these like little flashes, and you know how when something random pops into your head, you'll, have a random vision or a random song that pops into your head.
Right.
Well, information was popping into my head, and then basically it would come true. Not all the time, but I would have something pop into my head, and then immediately after that, it would come up in a conversation, and it was like in no way connected to what people around me were talking about, and I wasn't even participating in the conversation. Um, just it was just so random and too like uncanny to dismiss as like a coincidence. So I started basically doing free readings, like practice readings, in an online forum at the time. And that was back when forums were still really popular. Now nobody
Right.
uses them. But yeah, so I started doing practice readings, and before I knew it, my inbox was full of people wanting readings. So then
Wow.
I started sharing that with friends, family, and then it, of course, extended to strangers. And now I read people from all over. So,
Wow. That is incredible. You started doing readings for friends and that turned into other people. Were you finding that the things that you were telling them were true? Were these future readings or things that were happening in their present?
it was basically um, past, present, and future, and then mediumship. It was all
It was
of
all of it.
yeah.
Now, I want you to kind of help us a little bit because we're all looking for signs.
Hmm.
And, my signs that I get is anything from red birds, which I know a lot of people get those, but from red birds to Bryant's number. A lot of things are very prevalent with around the number 35. And all people are always looking for these signs. So help us, because I know that's what you do a lot right now, is you help people recognize the signs that they get from their loved ones. What can you teach us about that?
So anything can be a sign. Some people, like you mentioned, birds are a very popular thing that people look for, but you can also look for like unconventional things that were personally significant to you and your loved one. So you mentioned like the number 35 being a very significant thing for you and your loved one. So it could be anything from like an inside joke that you had with that loved one to a special date to a song. Um, so they can use anything to send us a sign. It doesn't have to be like anything conventional or like butterflies or birds or
Right, right.
hearts. Of course, those things can also be signs too. I think whenever it comes to recognizing a sign, the most important thing is when you see it, you'll just have this sense of like, wow, that's really weird. And wow, that really reminds me of my loved one. Or
Mm.
you'll just feel them around you. And I think people often will discount their strong feeling about something because, we're just kind of trained to write things off like, oh, it was a coincidence. But really just pay attention to how you feel about whatever is occurring around you. um, and usually if people are looking really hard for a sign, they've probably gotten one, but maybe they have certain expectations around what type of sign they're receiving. So in those cases, I would say to just kind of surrender and let go of the search, and just kind of keep an open mind as you go about your day, and kind of as soon as you let go of it, it will probably show up. It's one of
Oh,
those.
wow. Yeah, because, we were talking before and I told you around the number 35. And I think and I say it's the most recent, it's really not the most recent, but it was the one that stood out to me the most was when my daughter Christina had her little girl Roxanne, my granddaughter. She was supposed to have her, of course, you have your due date. Well, we had gone in for her doctor visit and the doctor said, well, congratulations, you're going to have a baby today. And she's like, hold on, like, this is just a checkup. This is not supposed to happen. Well, we went from the doctor's office next door straight to the hospital and it was just snowballed. And by 9 o'clock that night, she's given birth and she wasn't expecting the baby for a while. Wasn't even, she had no idea. She wasn't even having any symptoms at all that she was, having any labor pains or anything. So it was incredible. But how the story goes is Roxanne was born at 9:35 p.m. And we got that sign. But something in me, Danyelle, said, that's not it. That's not it. And it was almost like Bryant saying, Mom, that's not it. That's not the sign. And I just kind of brushed it off. Well, we are just Christina and I, everybody had gone home. It was 3 hours later, and she's trying to go to sleep. It was just before midnight. And I had this audible, literally an audible voice in my head that said, Mom, what's 15 plus 16? And I said, 31. And I'm having this conversation by myself. And he said, or it said, plus 4. And I said, 35. And he said, that's it. And I went, oh, today is April 15th, 2016. She was born on day number 35. And
Oh, wow.
it was like, that was it. 4, 15, 16 is 35. And I woke Christina up. I said, Christina, what's 15 plus 16? And she was like, are you kidding me? She's like, this is 31. And I said, plus 4. And she goes, 35. I said, Bryant said, that's it. Because she cried in delivery because she wanted her brother there so badly. They were best friends. And I said, that's what he wanted you to know, that he's here. He's part of Roxanne. And
Wow.
4, 15, 16 is 35. And why would that come to me, Danyelle? Like,
That's beautiful.
why would
Well,
I
that
even add the date up in my head at midnight?
right. That's one of those things, like you mentioned, it was almost like this audible voice popped into your head. And was it in your voice or was it in his voice? Or
It would have to, if I had to say, it was in mine, because I don't hear his voice anymore.
So usually people will hear messages in their own voice from their loved one, which is not something you'd expect, but it's coming through your intuition. So it's coming through in your voice. But the main way to tell the difference between what's sort of a sign and what's what's a sign from a loved one and what's just a thought that you're having, is, first of all, if there's feeling attached to it, like you have that sense of knowing it's from your loved one, then it's a sign. And also, just like the randomness of it, like, you're like falling asleep, it's like midnight, you said, and you're not
Right.
thinking about this, like, where would that come from? So the randomness of it, and then later, like, you kind of had this validation, you added it up and you realized, because that wasn't something on the forefront of your consciousness.
Right. And it wasn't her
So
due date. I mean, she wasn't even
right.
supposed to have Roxanne on that day. It was just a random date that she was at her doctor checkup, had no clue we'd be having a baby that day. And the baby was born at 9:35. So the baby had to be born before midnight, or it would not have been April 15th anymore. So it just, the whole thing was just incredible. So I want you to talk to us a little bit too about how you begin to, I know you're more in helping people find their signs and understanding so they don't need a medium or a psychic, but
hmm
in your one-on-one healing therapy or coaching that you have with your clients, how do you read them? Like, what do you
hmm
do that brings anything to the forefront for you?
Um, Basically, I just sort of try my best to relax, and I set the intention to connect to their loved ones and who are on the other side and provide messages of hope and healing. So I set that intention first of all, and then I actually, it sounds kind of crazy, but I will scribble to kind of get my brain into a different state, like literally just doodle, like scribble. Another medium showed me that technique, and it works very, very well.
Wow.
It's kind of just like you relax and these things just pop into your head. So I would, if anybody wants to try it, you can. It sort of allows those random images and like phrases like you described to surface a little more easily. And the way I think of it is, it keeps my analytical brain kind of kind of puts that side of my brain to bed and allows the more intuitive, creative side to come to the forefront. So,
That's that's interesting. So I know that some people, when they're looking for a medium or a psychic to go to for whatever reason, it's difficult because you don't know whether you're getting the real deal. So
right.
what tips can you give us for someone that wants to go see a psychic, has never seen one, but wants to go and wants to make sure that they're the real deal?
Somebody who wants to find somebody who's the real deal, look at their website, see how they describe their services. Um, First of all, anybody selling like like I'll get rid of a curse, that's a major red flag. Um, Anybody who talks about a lot of cleansing and like requiring multiple sessions to cleanse, or to anybody who's doing like love spells, those are obvious red flags, of course,
Mm,
but um, something to watch out for. Also, in this industry, price of the reading does not always equal real deal. So, you
really?
know, mhm. So
So
if
I guess
you
somebody thinks the more you charge, the realer you are, and that's just not true.
That's not always true. Sometimes it can be, there are very well-known mediums who will charge a lot, or people who will charge a lot just because they don't have a lot of slots open on their schedule, and they're supply and demand kind of thing. But it's it's not always the case that somebody who's charging a lot is the real deal. So make sure you read reviews before you book with somebody, if you could find reviews. And if they don't have reviews and they're just starting out, then email them and ask them about their services. And whatever questions you have, they should be able to answer, about their services. So
Right.
some things you might ask are, how do you connect with loved ones? What is your reading like, or what is your reading like? How do you do a reading? Do I need to be there in person? Some people can read you from across the country, so you don't always have to be there in person. So yeah, just things like that are.
So is that a real deal? Somebody could actually read you from across the country?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
spirit doesn't have a place.
Yeah, there's no
They're not
boundaries
bound
for
to
them.
a yeah.
That's interesting. So is it that they're reading you over the phone, or is it a face to face that makes a difference? Do you connect with that person?
Um, I think, at least for me, I know that every medium's different, but I don't even need face to face. Like, just a call is fine. But it is nice to have the face to face interaction, just because it's such a personal type of reading.
Right.
Um,
And
so
so
it's
do you ever have a situation where you're reading someone and you don't like what you're getting and you're hesitant to share?
yes, but usually, so sometimes people are afraid of like bad news coming through or something. But in my experience, any type of like any type of information that people might perceive as negative has always come through to me in this like very healing kind of way. And I'm trying to think of a way to like give you an example of
Hmm.
that, but it's always with this sense of like, God is watching over this situation, and things are going to be okay here, and this is why, and this is the meaning of this event, and here's here's what you need to do, or here's how you could heal from this, or it's this sense of being fully guided and protected that comes along with it for
That's
that
very,
person.
that's
So
interesting. So what about in a situation where a loved one has passed away due to suicide?
mhm.
Is that a little bit different reading for you or no?
um I believe that it's harder to read for people, just the human side of it, like my emotions. That's harder if it's been um a very negative circle, like they've died in a negative way. Well, of course death is always negative,
Right.
but you get what I'm saying.
Right, but like
um
suicide or murder or, or something like that where they, a tragic, I mean, it's all tragic, but my son was killed in an auto accident versus someone that consciously takes their own life. It's still a pain, it's still a tragedy. I just didn't know if with your gifts the spirit was different, like you came across different because they chose to
Mhm.
go to the other side versus not choosing?
I haven't experienced that
No?
actually. So, yeah, they've all come through relatively the same. The only difference is my ability to connect with them. Some seem closer, or some seem like I'm able to form a more solid connection with them. And others, the way the messages come through, they're a little more cryptic, and I feel like I'm working harder to decode what they're saying. But I don't think that that has very much to do with like where they're at. I think it has more to do with my own connection to them and my ability to tune in and dial in to their frequency.
That's interesting.
So,
So let's shift a little bit and talk
mhm,
about, tell me what you know about dreams or dream
mhm.
interpretation as far as someone coming to you um, in your dreams. Do you see that very often?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Um, I think that that is one of the best times for a loved that is the best time for people's loved ones to reach them, because your analytical mind is asleep, literally. Like, you're in this dream state, and you kind of need to be in an altered state somewhat to do a reading or to even get those messages. Like, you had mentioned your own experience where it was like late at night and you
Mm,
received this message. Whenever you're going to sleep or whenever you are asleep, that's a time, like I said, your mind is asleep, and it's just this fully so your creative intuitive mind are at the forefront, and that's what is needed to connect with and dial into the other side.
hmm,
So I kind of think that people's loved ones use that time, use that opportunity to reach them. So pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to what you're seeing. I think my own personal belief is that our dreams, some of it can be just random stuff from your day, like you're just unloading and going through things that you're working through in your life. But
mhm,
then I think some part of your dream is intuitive, and it's giving you a message or it's connecting you with the other side. And I think it depends on, whether or not somebody's trying to come through to you, like how much of that, the ratio to of life dream to intuitive dream could probably change depending on what you're going through in your life. If that makes sense. I'm trying to
it
think
does.
of a way
It
to like
does.
clarify
Does make
that.
sense. And that's one thing that I guess I've always been a little jealous of, if that even would be a good word to use in this contents. But when I've met with other moms that
Hmm.
tell me about their children coming to them in their dreams or talking to them in their dreams, it's almost like I get a sense of, well, why not me? Because I don't have that. Like I don't understand why I don't get it, but I'll tell you that I did have someone tell me, and it kind of hit home. And she said, I don't really know why I told you that, but I just feel like I needed to. I was sharing with her that Bryant did not come to me, or if he did, I just don't remember. And I
Hmm.
feel that if they're going to come to you in your dreams, they're going to give you a sense to remember what they said, or then what's the point if you can't remember it when you wake up? But she said to me, this was early on when Bryant had passed away. I said, I don't understand why I can't dream about him or hear his voice when I go to sleep. And she said that Bryant is not going to come to you while you're sleeping because he's afraid that you won't get out of bed and you'll want to sleep all the time.
Oh.
And when she told me that, I thought that is just like him and his personality to withhold that because he couldn't stand to see me cry or any of those things. So I
Hmm.
can see that he would be that way and
Hmm.
not want to come to me because he would think, okay, I just want to lay here and sleep because then I can just talk to my son, all night long.
Hmm.
But I've never had that ability to be able to dream. Is there something that we can do to tap into that and try to connect in our dreams, or is that just a natural occurrence?
Well, I think that part of it, maybe for you, is that you have, I feel like you have such a strong connection to him during your waking state that he doesn't really need to come to you in a dream. But some people who are perhaps more rational or like
Mhm.
scientifically minded or stubborn, even, they
Yeah.
might need their loved one to come through during a dream because they're not open to the signs or experiences in their waking state, or they're not looking for them. So
Wow.
somebody who's very open, like yourself, or somebody who's very intuitive, they're more likely to receive signs during the day and be open to those random things popping into their head and just looking around and getting an intuitive sense, oh, this is what my loved one's trying to say here. So that's the way that you're communicating on a day-to-day basis. So,
That's something that you're telling me that, because one thing that I have noticed and I've done for years is that, of course, I'm old now, so I talk to myself and then I answer myself at the same time. That's a sign that you're really getting old when you ask yourself a question and then answer it. But I have for years, I will literally like ask Bryant for something simple. Like I have
mhm,
drove through the mall parking lot round and round and can't find a parking spot. And I'll say, Bryant, which can you get your mama a parking spot up front, please? And I'll circle back around and there'll be somebody pulling out like right in front. Or, and I'm telling you, and this is like more than one occasion. This isn't one single occasion. There was one particular time where I was so frustrated. I had lost a file that had really important papers in it, and I could not find it. I was tearing everything up, and I was just like, I said, okay, Bryant, where is it at? Just out of frustration. Not that he was going to walk in and show me the file, but
right.
out of frustration, I said, oh, Bryant, where's the folder? Kind of like that. And immediately I get this voice, it's my voice telling me that I needed to go and look on the floor behind the headboard of the bed and that it was on the floor. Now, why would this file be on behind the headboard on the ground under the bed up against the wall? But I immediately went and it was a purple folder. And I moved the pillows and looked behind the headboard, and there it was on the ground. And then I remembered the last time I had it, I had a bunch of things on the bed and I had picked everything up except for that folder and went and put it back. And that was the last place it was. So it got pushed and it slipped
Mhm.
behind the headboard in the wall. But I knew immediately it was a voice that told me exactly where the folder was. And I want to call myself crazy, but is that crazy?
No, and that's actually an important point. Like, you asked a question, but you didn't actually really think about all of the like places it could be. It just popped in.
Right.
And that's how these messages come through. Like, you're not actively thinking about, well, what would my loved ones say here? And then you're like mentally going through all of the responses that they may have said. In that instance, it's more like, what would my loved one say right now? And then you kind of focus back on your task that you're doing, and then it pops in, and it may even surprise you what pops in. Like the folder surprised you because you would have never expected it would be there.
No, and it was immediate. There was no
Hmm.
thinking. The minute
Right.
I had, out of frustration, I literally just went, "Okay, Bryant, where's the folder?" And it immediately popped in my head. And it was
Hmm.
crazy because I went and told my husband, I said, "Okay, you're not gonna believe this." And for the longest time, I told people about the red birds in correlation with when a red bird would come, it would be when I was really in a sad situation or I was really having a hard time. I call them my Bryant days because even though I am a grief, I help people through grief and empowerment, and I'm adversity recovery expert is what I call myself because I am at this point. And I am certified in grief now, which came after Bryant passed away, that I went and got that just so I could understand a little bit more about just what I was going through. And one thing that I tell people all the time is about these red birds that appear when I'm in my state, and I call them my Bryant days or my Bryant state, where I just need this little period of sadness. I know I'm going to go back to, I'll get past it, but sometimes I just need that 15 or 30 minutes of whether it's I need to cry or I need to feel sorry for myself or whatever it is, I need to have that moment, a red bird will appear.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, crazy to the point to where I have been sitting at a hospital having a moment with someone else, and this red bird started beating. I mean, I thought the bird was going to die. It was just like beating itself up against a window in the cafeteria at this hospital. And everybody was
Wow.
staring at the red
Talk
bird.
about in your face,
I
right?
know. And I was like, holy cow. I kept thinking, did I miss all the red bird messages? And now he's ticked off at me. And so he's like beating this red bird up against the window over here. So I totally get the signs. And just like I was having the conversation with a friend the other day, and she gets signs from her grandmother. She was extremely close to her grandmother, and she was excited about you coming on the show as well to talk about this. So, what are some other things that you can tell us around understanding and connecting? Some tips that we can do if we're not getting the signs or we're not having the dreams, that we can connect with our loved ones that have passed away.
So there are a couple things you can do. There, you could try meditating and really just guided, relaxing meditation to get that analytical mind turned down a notch so that you have that intuitive mind on the forefront. And once you get into a somewhat meditative state, you can try to have a dialogue with your loved one, almost like you were describing, like how you ask your son questions. You could try, or anybody wanting to do this could try getting into a meditative state and then grabbing a piece of paper or a journal, getting it, going to a quiet place in, in your house or where you feel safe, and setting the intention to connect with your loved one, and then asking them a question and writing stream of consciousness paragraphs. And by that, I mean allowing whatever comes into your mind to hit the page. And it can be
Right.
unrelated, it can be like random. And that the reason why is that is again another way to get that analytical mind to quiet down and to allow messages to come through. And after you've written it, you can put it away for a little bit, maybe a few hours, maybe even 15 minutes is enough for you, and then revisit it and see what stands out to you about that. Maybe something in there is seemed random at the time it was coming through, but it's actually significant. It could be like significant as an answer to the question that you asked, I mean.
Yeah.
And so that's one way of tuning in and trying to connect intuitively with your loved ones. Another way, if that's hard for you, another thing you could do is just to, at the beginning of the day, just ask, look, I need I need a sign today. Can you send me something? And I'm sure people have tried something like that, but be open to what you get. And sometimes it could take a few days, but you'll get something. A third thing you could try is to ask for something very specific and random. And I'll give you an example. So one day, even though I do readings, I sometimes like to get signs because who doesn't?
Right.
Um, One day I decided to try this. It was the morning, and I thought, I'm gonna ask my grandparents for a really funny, like random sign. And I want the sign to be a chicken, but I don't want it to be like typical like fried chicken or like, chicken tenders. Like I want this to be like the animal, a chicken, and I want it to just be really in my face. So I was actually at the bookstore in the bargain section that day, and I forgot that I even asked for the sign. And I was looking through, like, I love to go to the inspirational section. And they had like a little bit of, like, they had some inspirational books in this section, and was like going through them. And behind one of the books, there was this big book all about chickens. And it was about like I mean, it had this, it was like labeled like chicken. I mean, it was so in my face. I took a picture and I put it on my Instagram. But just something like that, that's very like literally random, like a donut or a chicken or
Right.
y- I don't know.
I
But
think I think I would specifically ask for the lottery numbers. Just and because I'm going to tell you, if there was a way for my son to give me the winning lottery numbers, the child would do it. So maybe I'll sit in my meditative state and maybe that writing will, I'll just start writing numbers randomly and see what comes to me.
Oh, and the important thing about the stream of consciousness type of writing is to not judge what's coming through.
Mm,
To just like almost like, you know how kids will scribble with like and make artwork by scribbling.
right.
Well, it's like that, but with writing. Like you're just kind of allowing anything to come through. Whatever's popping into your mind is you're gonna write it for like a few paragraphs. Maybe you could even try this for a timed like a certain amount of time. So maybe 5 minutes, or you could limit it to like, oh, I'm gonna write like 3 paragraphs. It's up to you, but you could try that.
Wow. All right, I will. I'll try that. Thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate this. And I know people
Hmm.
listening are going to try all of those tips that if they're not getting signs and they're going to be comforted in knowing that they're not crazy, that the signs that they're getting are actually there to help comfort them. And I think that's what they do. I don't believe that, I don't believe that my son is actually giving me the signs, except for it's his spirit connecting with my spirit to give me those signs of comfort. That's where I believe that it's coming from.
That's what
But
I believe as well. Yeah.
yeah, I think that the spirit of my son and my spirit know what I need to comfort me, and
Hmm.
and God allows that to connect through the Holy Spirit. That's where I choose to believe that it
Hmm.
comes from, because I know that I get them and I know that they're real.
And I think that when it's a sign, it really confirms that there is a greater love out there and that's surrounding us and wanting us to heal and to be okay and to provide love and help and comfort for other people too. So it
Right.
allows us to be better people. The better we heal, the better we could be. So I'm totally there with you on that.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate you coming on the show today. And guys, I just want to remind you that January 2020 Real Girl Talk Podcast Live is promoting and having our second annual Create Your Life Women's Retreat and Vision Board Workshop. It's going to be a powerful Saturday, and it's going to be double the pleasure this time. It was a 2-hour event. It's going to be a 5-hour event. We're going to have vendors, amazing speakers, presenters, full brunch with champagne and all. We're going to have photo ops, lots of giveaways. The date is to be announced, but it will be in January 2020. So go to shareyourcard.com, get on our mailing list now, because it sold out last time. It will sell out this time, and we have very limited seats. And thank you so much for joining us today. If you'll do Danielle and I a favor, take a screenshot, post it on your Instagram, tag Danielle on Instagram, as well as myself. Empowerment is Beauty. And Danielle's going to tell you how you can find her and how you can work with her. And I appreciate you guys for joining me. Danielle, tell everybody where they can find you on Instagram.
It's Danyelle, Danyelle dot Simone, Simone. And my website is DanyelleSimone.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And until next week, guys, make sure you keep your encouragement tank full, your faith in God, step out of your comfort zone, and create a beautiful life. I will see you on the next episode. Hey guys, I want to make sure everyone knows Writer's Roadmap Master Course is reopening in the fall. This is a 9-module course where you receive 21 lectures packed with valuable information, videos, PDFs, templates, guides that show you step by step how to write a book, how to create a dynamic book cover, format, launch, publish, and market your book. When you're just starting out, I know the first question you have is, what should I write about? How do I publish the book? I constantly get questions from people unsure about which area they even want to be an author in. Often you just get nervous because you don't know if you're going down the wrong path. You don't understand the techie stuff or publishing. You have no clue where to begin. I'm telling you, this course is everything that I learned over a time of 2 years packed into one online course. And this is the last time that we're going to launch the course this year, 2019. It'll be open for 2 weeks for enrollment, and then it will close again and won't reopen until the spring of 2020. So make sure that you're going over to sherryricard.com. Get on the mailing list so you are the first to know when the course launches.